Hi guys, and welcome to Mental and Emotional Self-Management. You're probably here to learn some techniques to calm down and manage your stress. And these techniques have been tested empirically, meaning we did some studies with some real people. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see we did one back in 2017 that basically showed that through these skills, people had a better outlook on life and lower levels of stress. And then in 2020, we tested folks for how their stress response physiologically was, and that improved with these skills as well. So what we will do is take you through the steps of mental and emotional self-management, teach you a little bit about your own biopsychology, and then give you some guided directions for how to use these tools in your daily life. Thank you for joining us. What's going on? Why am I so stressed out? Why do I feel like I don't have the capacity to let things roll off my back or calm down when I need to calm down? Maybe I worry so much that I can't get sleep when I try and close my eyes. And this is a complex phenomenon that is all based upon biology. And when we look at one another as human beings, we see someone as a haircut or a suit or a smile, and most likely that is a facade. That's not who you're really seeing. That is a social extrapolation of how we're supposed to behave. In fact, every human being is a unique creature shaped by a lot of different experiences. And if you take a look at the yellow dot in the middle of your screen, imagine that that's you as a little baby in the womb. And even then, you are having different experiences from other little babies in the womb because perhaps you grew up in a household where there was domestic violence, meaning in the womb you were experiencing the stress of your mother and the stress of the environment, or perhaps you didn't have enough to eat. In comparison, perhaps you grew up in a very safe environment with plenty of food. So even before we hit the external world, we have a very different stress response. This continues after birth, as you might imagine. As a small child in household A, lots of stress, lots of uncertainty. The coping mechanisms that this child develops are very different than the coping mechanisms of a child who grows up in a safe and secure environment. So what does this look like? Well, as we start going to grade school, we might be really anxious or really happy and content. Everyone is so different, and the experiences keep piling on. Everything that happens in our lives shapes our perceptions of the world, year by year, experience by experience. And so no two human beings are identical, even if you are a similar gender or a similar skin color, or you even grew up in the same place and went to the same school. Each one of us has been shaped by our experiences. Have you ever been walking and suddenly jumped, not knowing why, and looked down and saw maybe a garden hose or a twig that had a twist in it, and you thought, well, that was odd. Well, actually, it wasn't. It was your amygdala doing what it is designed to do, which is to save you from dangerous situations. And the amygdala operates independently of, let's call it the thinking brain. So the amygdala takes charge when it needs to save you quickly. And that's a good thing because, that garden hose could have been a snake and might have bitten you. However, with repeated stress, our amygdala actually grows in size. And so we have a way of dealing with the world that starts to turn everything into a big deal. Every garden hose becomes a snake, to paraphrase. So we have to figure out how to deal with this amygdala and how to not let it turn into this overexcited state that totally changes everything in our world into something dangerous. Let's expand upon this difference between human beings. So I would like you to take a look at this photo and tell me what you see. Okay, some of you say, oh, cute puppy. Some say, I don't like that window's so far down, scary dog. Some people say, I don't think that dog should be in the back seat. It should have its own harness and be secured. Well, there you go. So we are viewing this environmental appearance, a dog in a car, all through our very different lenses and experiences. And let's throw this out there just for kicks. What if you were bitten by a dog as a small child, or maybe if you had a dog who looked exactly like this dog and that dog was your whole world? Now, do you see how these experiences influence how we view this image? Assuming that you were one of the participants who said, oh man, that is the cutest dog I've ever seen, that would be a completely different physiological reaction than someone who said, oh no, scary dog. Let's move the car up quickly because I don't want that dog to jump out and get us. Well, if you take a look at the diagram on the screen, what we see is two parallel lines, and that is where you have a balanced nervous system. That means that you're neither in fight or freeze, and you're just hanging out and you can handle life. It's not upsetting, it's not disturbing, you're cool. However, if you see something that is threatening to you, your heart rate increases, your breathing increases, your body prepares to flee. And that is depicted by the red line, which goes up and takes us out of balance into fight or flight or sympathetic nervous system activation. And this is what happens when we see something that's frightening. And the opposite side of the spectrum is maybe if you've ever been so startled that you just freeze. So it's another defense mechanism, and it's known as, not surprisingly, freeze. But that's when your parasympathetic nervous system engages and it literally just takes everything to a standstill. So you can see how they're completely different responses to fear. And it's important to understand that this is a biological reaction. So when you experience either of these states of your nervous system, it is your body doing what it was designed to do. So that's a good thing. Now, what's a bad thing is when we don't know how to get out of these two states. And that's where we're going next. Let's put this into a real world scenario. So we're going to leave doggies and snakes out of the equation. And up at the top of the diagram, you see a lightning bolt. So let's say that's an argument with someone you care about. So something happens, and if you follow the arrow, what may happen afterwards is that you get a sympathetic nervous system response, meaning you leave that balance zone and you go into fight or flight. Well, that's enough to get things going. It might turn into an argument. And that's, all fine and nice, but what we humans like to do is then think about it. So if you follow the next arrow, you may, long after the argument, it might be, oh, I should have said something different, or going to the past. This always happens. I can't believe that this happened again. It's terrible. Or going into the future, it's always going to be this way. I can't believe that my life is over. So our brains, more accurately, our minds, start to generate all of these stories about how good this is or how bad this is and how it's never going to change. And if you follow the blue arrow, you guessed it, guys, that is the kind of thinking that gets our amygdala all fired up. And then the amygdala starts the cycle all over again. It takes us into fight or flight, or perhaps just keeps us there. So it's a vicious cycle. We have an event, or maybe just the amygdala, but we stay in arousal. And this is how we get into a cycle where we can't calm down. Everything is a big deal when we can't calm down. And this is when we start losing sleep. It's when we start arguing with people. We have a hard time seeing good in the world. And it is just a physiological cycle. We can't get out of hyperarousal, meaning fight or flight. We think and think and think about it, which pumps up the amygdala, which makes the next event that happens even a bigger deal than it needs to be. And so we need tools to break this cycle. And you can break the cycle once you learn and practice these tools. To recap, when our physiological body senses a threat, we have these great tools called the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system that biologically prepare us to deal with the threat. So it would make sense that if a prolonged state of arousal influences the amygdala, it would be good to get out of that state of arousal, right? And so the very first set of tools that we're going to learn are for that exact purpose, tools to balance the nervous system. Step one, we learn tools to balance the nervous system, which is great. But then what about all of that rumination that we do? Long after the external threat has passed, we still think about what we should or shouldn't have done, and that in itself contributes to how the amygdala functions, and it's a repeated cycle of hyperarousal, rumination, amygdala activation. And so while balancing the nervous system will get us to a place where maybe we can bring our heart rate down, we have to address the mind, because the mind can actually keep us hyper aroused as if there were an actual threat in the room with us. So these two steps are critical in breaking the cycle of the mind and body battling one another to create chaos in our world. Okay, so what are the steps in the first objective, which is to balance the nervous system? Well, they are based upon both Eastern philosophy and Western psychology. And this work in the Eastern philosophy realm is thousands of years old, and these methods have been used by yogis and sages to basically accomplish what we want to do, which is to calm down and to reconnect the body-mind system. And more recently in clinical psychology, this work has been written about extensively by Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk, Daniel Siegel, and my mentor Elaine Miller-Karras from the Trauma Resource Institute. And so these tools are not something that just came up. They have been tested not over millennia, but in the Western world clinically over the past 20 years with great results. For the first skill, resourcing, I invite you to find a quiet place that you can relax, feel secure, and give yourself permission to have this experience. So take a moment, make sure that you're comfortable. It also helps to have a straight spine, feet firmly planted on the floor, and to be as free from distractions as possible. So please turn off your cell phone or any other media that's around. And now You're welcome to close your eyes if you like, and if not, you're welcome to keep your eyes open. But I invite you to bring to mind a person, place, thing, or idea that brings you great peace, comfort, and joy. Just thinking about this person, place, thing changes your mood and outlook on life. So take a moment and bring to mind something that fits that description. If it's a place, try to bring it vividly into your mind. If it's a person, it can be someone that's still living or someone who's passed, maybe a figure, a historical figure, or someone that you admire. But just thinking about this brings a warmth to your heart and lightens your load. Some people like to use pets as a resource. So if there's a special animal in your life, please bring that to mind as well. And now I invite you to notice the sensations in your body as you think about this person, place, thing, pet. Do you feel any tingling or maybe warmth? Or do you just feel excited? Notice in your body what changes when you start thinking about your resource. And now, while keeping your resource in your visual field, notice as much as you can about this resource, meaning make it as real as possible. If it's a place, what time of day is it? Is the sun shining? Are there any smells in the air? Make this resource as real as possible, as if it were in the room with you right now. Again, notice the sensations you are experiencing as you live this experience. Congratulations, you have learned your first tool. So what is the deal with resourcing? Well, with practice, you can find a diversion for your mind, meaning when something challenging happens, it gives you something else to go to. Because as we learned a few slides ago, our minds have a way of thinking and overthinking, which keeps us in hyperarousal. So a resource is a way to get our mind off of something that might be distressful and bring it to something that actually shifts our thinking to something positive or pleasant. And what's really wonderful about resourcing is that once we start to tap into sensations in the body, meaning I think of my resource and I notice that my heart is warm, it becomes more powerful than just a thought. Thinking is half the battle, but feeling it in our bodies, sensing it, that really makes it a powerful tool for when something does go wrong and we need to balance our nervous system. So I invite you to practice resourcing And you may need to change resources from time to time, meaning find a different resource, but the activity is always the same. Bring to mind your resource, intensify it, and then notice the sensations in the body. This is our first tool. Many of us live outside of our bodies, meaning we stay so buried in our heads and our thoughts, we've really lost touch with the sensations in our body or even what's going on in our body. Many of us also have such pain in the body that we really don't want to go there. And so we're denying ourselves valuable information about what's going on. Are we getting frustrated or nervous or excited? And so tracking is a way to get gently back in touch with your body. So again, I invite you to sit up straight, feet on the floor, close your eyes if comfortable, and just take 3 deep breaths. Now begin to scan your body from the top of your head, moving slowly down your head, neck, shoulders, and just notice what sensations arise. Is there any place you're holding tension? Are there any places that are hot spots or cool spots, or maybe there's some tingling, itching? What else? What is your body communicating to you right now? Continue to move slowly and systematically down your torso, your waist, your legs, knees, feet, just tracking your body from moment to moment while noticing the sensations that come up as you turn your attention to that part of your body. Do this a couple more times, patiently moving from body part to body part, noticing sensations. And then also be aware that the sensations do change. With time, maybe a tense spot starts to loosen a little bit as we release that jaw that's clenched, or that brow that is furrowed. Just continue breathing and continue moving, and notice how the sensations change over time, reminding us that nothing is constant, no situation is permanent, and our sensations come and go. Tracking is a tool that needs to be developed so that we begin to understand what our body is trying to tell us. Many of us have spent years ignoring what our body is trying to tell us, which has not worked out so well. So as we start to tune into the sensations of the body, we may notice aches and pains, but this is a good thing, because we need to understand where we're clenching, where we're holding tension. With practice, through breathing and other techniques, we can start to release these spots. Furthermore, tracking is critical for what we're going to do next, which is understanding when we're getting into hyperarousal. So sensations in the body and the quality of the breath are two ways that our body tells us that things aren't going well. So by tuning into sensations in the body, which is what we do while tracking, we're reconnecting the signals that we will need to interpret in order to change our orientation to our own bodies, to stress, and to our external environment. Again, I invite you to sit up straight, but this time I want you to notice your butt in your chair and your back against the chair. Notice your feet on the ground. Notice the sensations associated with feeling supported. You're in your body. You're making contact with your environment. Now I invite you to notice your feet where they touch the ground, and imagine roots shooting out of your feet into the ground, supporting you, grounding the energy that your body's creating. And as you breathe, sense that you're breathing in clear energy. As you breathe out, imagine that you're purging anything that you don't need, letting go of anything that no longer serves you. And as you push the air out, feel that energy leaving your body and exiting through the roots in your feet. Grounding is a tool to get us back into our bodies. When we are in one of those worry cycles and our mind is running the show, we forget we even have a body. And so grounding is a technique to put the mind and body back in the same page, so to speak. When we ground, we're noticing how our body is in our environment, meaning where we're making contact with different aspects of our body, how we relate to the sensations as we feel in our body, and also knowing that we are great sources of energy. Humans are electrical beings and we do need to be grounded. So another aspect of grounding is to take off your shoes once in a while, get outside, walk in the sand or walk on cool grass. And this actually helps to transfer some of the ions that we build up over time away from our bodies and into the ground, which is another way to balance the nervous system. Okay, this one you know, but we're going to learn a slightly different way to do breath counting. We are going to try to make every breath a little deeper, and we're going to try to make the out breath longer than the in breath. And there is a physiological reason for this because that engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which brings our heart rate down. So you can actually control your heart rate through your breath. Now you know. So with breath counting, I invite you to sit up straight again. Chin parallel to the floor. Take a moment. Notice if you're holding tension anywhere. Let that go. And on the in-breath, we will try and fill up the belly. So try and make your belly expand as you breathe in, and then the belly contract as you breathe out. And this means we're using our diaphragm, so we're actually getting a bigger, fuller breath. So on the in-breath, we're going to count how long it is. And the same for the out-breath. That's how we're going to do breath counting. So let's do one together. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can do better. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's much better. Now I invite you to practice on your own for 3 breaths. And as you breathe, you may have your mind run away with you, meaning, oh wait, what number was I on? Or wait, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was breath counting. And that's okay. That is part of calming the mind. That takes practice. So breath counting, as it turns out, is not only a way to balance the nervous system by engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, but it's also a great meditation technique. So it falls into both categories. A great way to balance the nervous system and a way to calm the mind. So continue practicing your breath counting. With breath counting, you can experiment with different breathing modalities, meaning you can breathe in and out through the nose, or you can breathe in through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And each of these accomplishes a slightly different function physiologically. But however you do it, the mechanism is still the same. It's all about counting the in-breath and making the out-breath longer than the in-breath. And with practice, you can start to use this to hone in on both as a tool to calm the nervous system, but also as a way to notice sensations in the body, because the nostrils give a very small piece of real estate to center in on a sensation. So breath counting is really a multifaceted tool and can be used in a lot of different situations. So I invite you to play around with breath counting to see how it can best benefit you. Remember back our diagram where we saw how the nervous system can become unbalanced, and then we think about what went wrong, and that serves basically the same purpose as something new happening, meaning our mind can create even more drama in our lives. And so once we have calmed the nervous system, we have to start looking at our mind's role in influencing the amygdala and keeping us activated. So meditation is a very important tool in learning how to change our orientation, not only to our external environment and what's going on externally, but also to our internal environment and what we're thinking. I invite you to sit up straight, chin parallel to the floor, feet rooted firmly on the ground, and to take a couple of deep belly breaths. Starting from the crown of the head, notice if there are any sensations, tingling, tightness, and give yourself permission to just breathe and release any tightness as we continue to move down the forehead. Notice if your eyebrows are maybe furrowed or there's any tightness in your temples. And continue moving down the eyes. Relax your eyeballs. Relax all the muscles in the eyes. Relax your temples. Relax your nose. Relax your cheekbones. Continue working down towards the ground, moving slowly to the jaw. Continue breathing and let go of any tension in the jaw. Moving down the throat. Are you clenching anything in your throat? Can you breathe into that space and relax a little more? Just noting any sensations that arise. Continue moving into the shoulders. So many of us hold a lot of tension in the shoulders, and just notice what sensations are there. Breathe into that area and try and loosen up any knots as you continue breathing and continue moving down the body. As you move down your arms into the chest, notice the fullness of your breath. Notice if you're using your belly breathing technique, meaning as you inhale, expand the belly. As you exhale, contract the belly. All the while noticing what sensations come up. Noticing how they dissolve or change. And noticing how your breath influences the sensation. Meaning if something is tight, can you breathe into that area? Can you relax a little bit more? Moving down the abdomen, into your stomach. What sensations are there? Can you relax a little? Can you breathe into that space and can you let them go? Moving into the buttocks, noticing the support of the chair as we also notice if there's any tightness there that we can let go of. And again, noticing any sensations that arise. Moving down the thighs. Again, releasing any tightness. Breathing. Noticing sensations as we round the knees and move down to the calves and shins. Again, breathing and releasing. As we move into the feet, again, noticing the solidness of the contact with our feet with the ground. Perhaps feeling the sensations in the feet as we release tension into the ground. And finally, taking one or two more deep breaths and noticing what has shifted from when we began this exercise. Are there areas of the body that are maybe a little looser? Maybe there's a little bit of lightness in your heart. Maybe a little more calmness in the mind. And ending with a thought of gratitude that we have a body, that we have breath, and that we have this opportunity to practice. The MESM tools are a way to change our orientation to the stress response. And that's physiologically what happens in our bodies when either something actually happens in our external environment that seems threatening to us, or when in our internal environment we mentally ruminate over a situation, which creates the same type of physiological reaction. And so with practice of the MESM tools, we can become less activated less often. Daniel Siegel calls it expanding the window of tolerance. And the window of tolerance is, kind of where we have a balanced nervous system and we can deal with things. Elaine Miller-Karras calls it the resilient zone, meaning when we practice this, we actually build our resilience. Either way, what we're doing is we're learning tools to become less reactive. And with practice, you can increase your ability to deal with stress. And this is the magic of learning skills to deal with stress, because stress is going to happen. We can't live in a perfect world. There are always going to be circumstances that are challenging. There are always going to be people that rub us the wrong way. However, what we do when we encounter these situations is totally in our control. We are now empowered. We have tools to balance our nervous system. We have tools to manage our minds so that we can actually change the amygdala reaction that right now might be automatic for many of us. So what's the added benefit? You get to enjoy life. By living in a world where not everything is overwhelming or threatening, we start to notice that there's some really amazing things happening right in front of us every day that we just couldn't see before. This practice is so beneficial and so worthwhile, and it does take practice. So please experiment with the tools and see what happens.